Hello, welcome to the 912 Food Pharmacy June program. Thank you for joining us. My name is Liz Juneau, and I am the Nutrition Educator for the program. I had the opportunity over the past month to meet many of you at our 4 locations, and I got a lot of good feedback from you. One of the questions that I asked was, why did you join the program? And many of you responded that you wanted to eat more fresh produce, more fruits and vegetables. You wanted to care for more yourself. Many of you also responded that you wanted to set a good example for your children. In fact, one of the participants in the program actually said that her son was the person that actually prompted her to join the program. So welcome the feedback. We also talked about food journaling, not actually food journaling, but just journaling in general, and asking yourself some questions as you go along in the program. So why is it important to journal? Well, because journaling actually helps us know a little bit more about ourselves, especially when we put it down on paper. And so one of the other questions that was in the participant cookbook and that I asked many of you is, what is a good food memory? And I had some great responses. One of the ones that has stuck with me is a woman that said one of her best food memories was picking strawberries with her grandfather. And she remembered that vividly. And one of the other questions that we asked was, what's a food that's more challenging to you? And got a lot of responses on that one too. A young girl responded that tomatoes were a food challenge. Some people responded that some foods were food challenges in the past, but because they had changed the way they prepared it, they actually loved that food, and that was Brussels sprouts. So in the past, she had had them prepared one way and didn't like them, but then found out that she really loved them roasted. So that made a huge difference for her. So if you haven't had a chance to answer those questions, please do. And at the end, we'll talk about prompts for June. Okay, so our produce for this month is leeks, mushrooms, and fresh herbs. So leeks are usually in season this time of the year, but we don't have any leeks today, but we're gonna use an alternative, but I still wanna talk to you about leeks. So leeks are a type of onion, and you can use them in any way you would normally use onions. So they're very, very versatile. You wanna pick leeks that are firm. You wanna pick leeks that have some light green, white at the tops. They can be dirty, so there's a couple of different ways of washing them. You can either run them under water and get off the dirt that way, or you can soak them in a bowl of water for about 15 minutes, and then the dirt will release that way. So when your leeks are clean, you're gonna cut off the ends and cut off the tops, and then you're gonna slice it down the middle, and you're gonna just slice them. Today we're gonna be using actually fennel in place of the leeks. Hopefully they will be in season. You'll have an opportunity to buy them and try them. So the nutritional content of leeks. So leeks are very low in sodium. Leeks are high in vitamin A, they're high in vitamin C. They're a great source of fiber as well. Just a little bit of trivia about leeks. So leeks actually like to grow in a very cold climate. And so they actually need frost to make them come to their full potential. So they do like the cold climates. So again, we're gonna be using fennel today. Looks very similar to leeks, okay? We're also gonna be using mushrooms. So let me move this over and let you see. So we're gonna use actually a white button mushrooms. So mushrooms are actually not a vegetable. They don't have leaves, they don't have roots, but they are a fungus. And so the way they propagate, they make each other, is by spores. There are lots of different types of mushrooms. The white button ones are the ones that you're gonna see most commonly, but there are many, many types. There's portobello mushrooms, there's cremini mushrooms, there's chanterelles. And they all have a different taste to them. But we're gonna use those today. And the way that you're gonna clean the mushrooms is, First of all, you're going to store them in the container that they came in or a paper bag, and you can store them in the refrigerator. You're not going to clean them until you're ready to use them. So the easiest way to clean them is to use a cloth or a wet paper towel and just clean off the dirt by wiping them off. And I've already cleaned these off. And then we're gonna just slice them. If you buy mushrooms and you aren't able to use them right away, you can actually slice them, cook them, and then freeze them. And they freeze well probably for about a month. So just some facts, the nutritional content of mushrooms. So mushrooms also are very low in sodium, very low in calories. Mushrooms are a great source of niacin, riboflavin, and copper, which have uses in the body for things like making red blood cell and also for processing nutrients. So they have all of those. How would you use mushrooms? Well, most people are familiar with mushrooms on pizza, mushrooms in spaghetti sauce. You can put them on top of a hamburger. You can put them in a hamburger. Basically, you can use them in things like gravy. They're very good sauteed on putting them on meats. You can mix them in vegetables. They're extremely versatile. They also have a very meaty flavor, so they give a richness, a depthness to different dishes. And our last ingredient for this salad is we're going to be using some fresh herbs. So herbs are actually used in much smaller amounts in dishes to add lots of flavor. So normally we don't just eat an herb, we actually put it in different dishes. So we have some fabulous herbs here today. So we have a large bunch of basil, and herbs are very fragrant. There's two types of herbs. There's actually what's called culinary herbs, and then there's medicinal herbs. We're using culinary herbs today. Some of them actually can be used for both. The culinary just means they're edible. We're using them in cooking. Usually they're very fragrant, especially when you pinch them, tear them off, you're gonna really emit the fragrance. So there's the basil. We have thyme that actually came from my garden, this one. And so thyme is used in a lot of French cooking. It's used also in salads and soups and stews. Basil would also be used in like Italian cooking. It's also used in something called pesto, which is something people use on pasta. We've got this beautiful scallions or green onions. This is cress, spicy cress, which I'll admit I have not had before, so this is new to me. We have tarragon. We have parsley, which most people are familiar with. There is a couple of different types of parsley. And then we also have some mint, which is a pretty common herb. So we have a very wide selection. Now we also have lemon balm, which actually is a culinary herb, and it also is medicinal herbs. Some other herbs that we don't have would be maybe oregano, dill, and these are very easy to grow as well. But these came from, except for the thyme, these other ones came from the farmer's market, so they are available. The two most common mushrooms you're going to see at the farmer's market are actually one called lion's mane, and the other one is called oyster mushrooms. And so there are a couple of different mushroom vendors there, so you can talk to the vendors at the farmer's market and ask them how you may use those mushrooms, and ask a little bit more about it as well. There are also mushroom growing kits, so you actually could grow your own mushrooms, which would be really cool. So we're gonna slice the rest of these mushrooms, and I'm just going down the side. This is a nice big one. And so, like I said earlier, mushrooms have this very kind of depth to them, kind of a meaty quality to them. So if you're trying to eat less meat, this may be something that you want to add to more vegetarian meals, because they do have that richness that a meat would have. There's our chopped mushrooms. We have a lot of fresh herbs. We could use all of them. We can use some of them. It's your choice. So I've got this beautiful basil. We're just gonna pinch off a couple of leaves. We don't want the stems, we're gonna put those aside. And one of the easiest ways to actually cut an herb like basil is actually just to roll it up, roll the leaves up. And this is a method called chiffonade. And so if we just roll them up and like a little tight, we can come back out here and just slice them this way. And then if we want them a little bit finer, there we go. Put them in the bowl here. Let's use some scallions. And remember, I was reminded today that a recipe is just a guideline. You can have a lot of flexibility with recipes. You can use what's in season, you use what's available. Beautiful green onions, they have a wonderful smell. We're going to use a little bit of the tarragon. You could also tear the herbs if you don't want to cut them. You may have bigger pieces, but that's fine as well. We talked a little bit last time about mindfulness in eating and being present. So just to remind you that mindfulness is eating with intention and attention, and just really being connected to food. So when we have seasonal produce and we're able to actually meet the people that are growing our fruits and vegetables, and then we're connected to the food and really staying present with that and enjoying all the smells, textures, and tastes, that's basically mindfulness. It's not complicated. And we'll add a little bit of the mint. So the rest of the ingredients we need for our vinaigrette are some extra virgin olive oil. We're going to be using some apple cider vinegar. We're going to be using some Dijon mustard, and then just salt and pepper. And we already have our beautiful herbs. So the recipe actually called for just a tablespoon of mixed herbs, but because we had so many, we have a lot more than that. Keep in mind that you could also use dried herbs for this recipe. When you use dried herbs, you do need less of them because, of course, they are dried, so they're a little bit more pungent and powerful. But again, like I said earlier, we're being flexible with this recipe. So we're going to use, recipe calls for 3/4 cup of olive oil. And we're using our measuring cup, and you should all have one, or you will be getting a measuring cup set. So I'm going to use this one. So that's about 3/4 cup. 1/3 cup of the apple cider vinegar. 2 tablespoons of Dijon mustard. 1 teaspoon of pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of the salt. And then we're just going to use a whisk to whisk this. You could also take this and use it in a mason jar and just shake it up. And last month, our recipe was for the easy blueberry overnight oats. So you all should have a mason jar. So that'd be another application for that mason jar if you wanted to use it for the salad dressing. Now we're going to put our salad together. So we already have our sliced mushrooms. We're going to add some salad greens. Again, this is where you get to do variety. So we have some romaine, we have some spinach in here. So we're going to just toss our greens in here. The spinach has some of the stems. If you want to remove those, you can. This is baby spinach, so they're pretty tender. A little bit more here. And we're actually, because we didn't have leeks, we're actually using fennel, which is going to give it a lot more flavor as well. So we're going to add some of that. You could add, if you wanted to have more variety, some tomatoes. We have these lovely orange tomatoes. We have this beautiful green, red, purple tomato. That would be fine to add. So add what you like to it. So we've got the mushrooms, we've got the salad greens, we've got the fennel, and now we're gonna just add the vinaigrette with these beautiful herbs. And then we're just gonna give it a toss, stir. Coat everything. And now we're gonna plate it. So here's our beautiful finished salad. We've got the greens, we've got the mushrooms, we've got fennel, but of course leeks will be in season. You can use those as well. We've got this lovely vinaigrette with all our beautiful herbs and very aromatic herbs. They just smell wonderful. It is ready to eat.